Okay. Right, now this one's been called the PA rig. Now it's only been called the PA rig, not just because I came up with it, but because we didn't know what else to call it at the time. It's built on a different mono. It's built on a very, very stiff mono. It's called hard mono. It's a very special American line, and it's virtually tooth-proof. You do get a little bit of scuffing, but it doesn't affect the strength of it. And if you did get any damage, all you got to do is move the hook, just cut a piece off, put the hook back on. That's all you got to do. Again, the rig comes with the ready-made rig, comes with the rattles on it. You can take them off if you don't want to use them. I tend to use it with the rattles quite a lot. Now the way this works differently to the standard poly ball rig is, one, in my opinion, it makes the bait work differently, and two, it works better with a back hooked fish, and I'll show you why. First of all, I'll show you a little piece of the rubber first. Let's push that onto there first, and again, as I say, this works equally well with barbless. This rig is available with barbless hooks as well. You go through the back of the fish. You'd actually go through where the dorsal, in the dorsal area. It's a very muscly part and doesn't really seem to do any harm to the fish at all. But what I do then is pull that quite tight, that piece of rubber, and pull it down, and that stays on. It's almost like a saddle. Now, the way that works then, that piece of rubber, it stops the hook from seesawing its way through the bait. Now, if that's going to be out there, say maybe 12-14 hours at night, you don't want that to wear away and find the bait's gone, it'll just fall off during the night. You want that to stay in that position. And not only is it going to stop wearing a hole in the bait, but that hook is always going to be in the right position for hooking the bait, hooking the catfish. It keeps that exposed. It doesn't turn into the bait in any way at all. Whatever happens, wherever that bait moves, that hook moves with it. So that's always going to stay with a point exposed. Well, we used to use elastic bands years ago, and they used to wear out, the hole in the elastic band used to get big. That used to slip round, can't even do it with that, look, but like slip that round, they used to bury itself into the bait, which was obviously absolutely useless. Wait there for hours and hours for a run, and then when you strike, there's obviously you're not going to catch anything at all. The rest of the rig is all adjustable. It's all safe as well. It'll all fall apart if you get seriously snagged up somewhere and you've got to pull up for a break. All this lot will literally fall apart if necessary. If something breaks off here, it will all fall off. Obviously the line's got a break for that to do that. One of the main reasons why fish get snagged up on polyball type rigs is the polyball is normally tied on quite strong line. If it gets snagged up into a tree or bush, sunken line or anything like that, it can often lead to a tethered rig, even a tethered fish. With this is a power gum link. The reason being it doesn't tangle, and it's very, very soft and very, very easy to use. But if it was to get snagged up, all you do, the fish will, if you pull for a break, you can just lose that. It'll just come off. That'll leave you to retrieve the rig, or hopefully if the fish is still on, you should be able to land the fish. So I think it's a very, very safe way of fishing. Now this comes with a white poly ball and a green poly ball, which is the standard green poly ball. It also comes with the standard green snap light. Don't have to break the light, it's just there to hold the poly ball on. But if you want to use the light, you snap it, give it a shake, and that will glow then all night. You can use that then to see if your live bait's working. If you pop it right up to the surface, give it a few minutes, see if it's working, and if you want to wind it back down again, you can do. Now on some waters, the light itself seems to attract fish. So I've had quite a lot of takes on this type of outfit when I've had the light on, when I've had the light cracks. What I tend to do then is move that down. This is all adjustable, so that'll all come down to there, like so. Fish that a little bit closer to the bait, because obviously you don't want to fish hitting that, so move the whole lot a little bit closer, so you can fish this as close as you want to the hook, and try that that often works wonders, just having a bit of illumination by the bait. When you're not doing it like that, just have it set at the normal distance, and say that'll just slide up the line quite happily in a way like that to keep it all neat and tidy. Now the great advantage of this rig, because it works on this stiff mono, not only is it totally safe, but in this situation it acts almost like a boom. That fish isn't going to lay against the rest of the rig, it's just going to always move around. Now if you can imagine that as a live fish swimming around and around, it's a bit like a paternoster setup on pike fishing. So those of you who do a bit of piking will always see the way that swims around, and this is almost as close to that as you can get. It'll actually swim, it gives the fish far more movement than a standard polyball rig, and I think that's why it's been so successful over the years. So I've used it for a lot of years now, and it's probably my #1 catcher for fishing anywhere from the bottom up to the top. That one, that's the one. Ready made now from Catmaster Tackle.
So this is your go anywhere rig?
This be my go-to rig. Yeah. I always always got one out on this. One of the lakes I've been fishing recently, last couple of years, it's the only rig that works on there. I've seen everything else. It seems to keep going on and on. It just doesn't seem to get blown at all.
And why do you not nose hook this one like the other rig?
You can nose hook it. I just prefer the action of it. If you can imagine that paternoster effect, when it swims around, it just swims around in a more natural kind of action to me. Wounded fish, but not doing the fish any... I think it's less stressful as well. A lot of the time when you nose hook them, it does the same movements. What happens on a back hook fish, if this is up on the surface, you can imagine now if that polyball is on the top, this can actually come right up to the surface and it'll splash on the surface. You can often see that splashing on the surface, it'll go round the polyball in a big arc, which it can't do on the standard polyball rig. So then that will swim around right up to the surface, and then it will dive down again when it just looks just like a dying fish. And if it's back hooked, to me it looks a lot better. You get that surface movement as well. If it's lip hooked or tail hooked, it tends to swim away from the rig more, and you don't see it actually come up to the surface. I do like to see it come up to the top and splash on the surface a bit, and then away it goes again. And I think that looks more like a wounded fish than any other setup I've used.
When you get a take, do you hit it straight away, or do you count to 10? Is it for pike fishing?
No, you don't count to 10 in so much now. But when I get a take on this rig, or perhaps any other rig really, it's hard to actually give you a figure how long you leave it for. A lot of it depends on where you're fishing and how the take's going. You tend to hit really fast takes a lot quicker than you do sort of steady takes. I think it's just a reflex. If I've got a nice steady take, I'll walk up to the rod, I'll pick up the rod. It's normally going on against a bait runner, loosely set bait runner. Pick up the rod. If it's still going nicely, nice and smooth, it's just give it a couple more seconds, click the bait runner off, wind and strike at the same time. I've seen a lot of people with live bait rigs missing fish. They miss so many, and a lot of it's because they're not striking cleanly. What they tend to do is wind down more like carp fishing or pike fishing. They wind down until they feel the fish. I think then, if it's not actually hooked itself, it will eject the bait, and they're striking the bait out of the fish. What I tend to do is wind down quickly, very fast, just feel picking up the line, any loose line, winding and strike at the same time. And I've got to be honest, my hit rate is quite high using that technique.
That's a good tip.
I think most people don't strike firm enough. Yeah, they feel the fish, a bit like you would do if you're carp fishing. You're just winding into it. And I think a lot of the lads, if they come from a carp fishing background, they don't strike. They just wind and wind and wind until because the hooks are self-setting. But with catfish, you've got to transfer you've got to transfer that hook, quite a big piece of steel. You've got to transfer that from the fish into the catfish, and the only way you're going to do that is by losing that. You've got to strike out of here into the catfish's mouth, and I think so it is important to give it a good firm strike. Transfer that hook and you won't go far wrong.
When would you change a live bait?
When it's knackered. Really, it's hard to say. There's two schools of thought on this actually. Some people leave them out there for ages and ages and ages, and the fish is barely moving, and now that's fine. That is absolutely fine, because they want an easy supper. So they're going to take if it's easy to catch rather than chasing it around all over the place, they're going to take it. So as long as there's a little bit of movement left in it, and you can tell with this rig, incidentally, because you can pop that right up. If that fish then just floats there, as most dead fish will float, even with a hook like that in it, it'll float right next to the poly ball. And if it doesn't move after a few minutes, then it's probably had it. Time to change it. Pike fishing, where you want the freshest, fastest moving fish you can. Catfish feed in a totally different way. And not, if you look at some of the videos that are available, they're not the best hunters in my opinion. They do miss a lot of baits, so I don't mind if the bait's not moving ever so fast. This rig incidentally can be used with dead baits as well, quite happily with dead baits. It can be used with leeches, and it can also be used with bunches of worms as well, because the way that stands off like that, that leech is not going to get caught up around the rest of the rig. It'll actually stand off quite well. I mean, it's an all-purpose go-to rig. Yeah. Right.